Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. We are back live with you here. I've got the main man, Stephen Orr himself. BigBeat, how you doing today?
I'm good. Howard, I think the world changed a little bit over the weekend as we saw tariffs coming flying in from every direction. Politically, it's not a good thing. We noticed that we're not seeing politics being played into this one where the normal surrogates are coming out supporting the president on this. And he is really holding to the banners there that he's going to do not just in Canada, not just in Mexico, but everywhere. And they asked him about EU, and they said yes. Wow. So you saw what the reaction was over the weekend.
Yeah, that you and I were talking before we came on. One thing you can say, it doesn't really matter which side of the aisle, except for a few staunch MAGA conservatives. Everybody realizing that these trade tariffs and trade war is not good for anybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a history buff and somebody who studied it in both university and college, and I can tell you, it reminds me of the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 when Congress went through it. And when I said that the other day on TV, they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Well, that's what happens when we make mistakes and we repeat them. It sends us into depression, not a recession. The big D word, depression." And that was not good. And it wasn't until later when we saw, Roosevelt having to get us out with other acts of lowering the tariffs around the world that we were able to get out because we need free trade. Trade needs to happen. You look, if we have an imbalance with other countries, it's because we need better products. If we have an imbalance with other countries, then we need to lower our dollar. China figured that out. Why can't we? We're just going to raise tariffs. All it's going to do is raise interest rates. That's a big tax on the American people. Okay, so let's say you cut out all the taxes on the American people and just have tariffs. That's still 25%. It's like,
it's just a different form of tax. Tariffs is just a different form of tax. In fact, it's the one that led to the creation of this country, I thought, right?
Correct.
I come from an area, North Shore of Boston, and sort of the people that came from that area burnt some tea, if I remember, threw it into the ocean. So, that's what we're sort of seeing here is that taxation from a different form.
Right.
And again, I think that it's finally starting to get through people that there isn't really an industry that doesn't get affected heavily by this, right? The talk was, I saw a lot of fights on Twitter because some of the staunch MAGA people pointing out that, if you don't want tariffs, buy American. But here's the thing: you can't buy an American car that doesn't get its parts.
Every car has different. Doesn't matter what country you produce the car in. You produce it in India, you still get American parts. You've got the Mexican parts. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and that's what we're seeing, and that's why we're seeing such a broad market downturn. Right? It isn't limited to one area or another. It's pretty much across the bow. Because this isn't good for almost any of them. The only sector I saw with a little bit of strength this morning, steel. Because it's going to be cheaper for U.S. steel. What people need to look out for is most of that steel goes to Mexico and Canada. So they're not going to buy it. I will say anyone that's looking to drink your sorrows away, there'll be a big surplus of bourbon because, one of the first things to happen was Ontario's liquor board, when they have a country that runs like some of our states where they control the liquor, they have taken all U.S. products off of the shelves. So,
man, that hurts red states. It hurts Kentucky and Tennessee.
Yeah, and they looked and took more and went after those states. So we're seeing that this is not good for that matter at all. I think we should start a little bit with crypto, right? Bitcoin, absolute bloodbath overnight. Largest liquidation event we've seen in history. So, over about $2.5 billion in losses for people, $2.5 billion in losses across the wider crypto, infrastructure. Not good to see it. Just a cascade of liquidations that came out. I was on last night. I did buy the dips both on Bitcoin and Solana. I did post them on Twitter and everything else. Both are up pretty well from there. I am not scared. Nothing. Tariffs don't affect crypto. This is a sell-off because of the fact that crypto is about a 3x move on NASDAQ, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen, and that's what it is. So, that's the other part I would look at. If Bitcoin fell about 9%, I'm looking for about a 3% drawdown today across a lot of the tech stocks. Is that sort of the philosophy you've got going?
Yeah, I mean, it's when you talk about it from the perspective of we're going to put tariffs on everywhere, we're not going to change that. We're going to keep it going. We're going to pump the, no brakes, go all the way. Then that's going to be a problem. And you know what? The one thing the market does not like the most is uncertainty. If you tell us what we're going to do, we're going to do it. Now, I've said this several times that President Trump, when he says he's going to do something, he pretty much does it. But in this situation, this is really bad. We've not seen this kind of tariffs in the race since the 30s, and it didn't go well then. It's not going to go well now. It never does. Tariffs never work. Now, if it's short term, like Goldman Sachs says, okay, he's threatening and he's showing that his threats are for real, okay. But this feels different to me. It feels like he really is going to leave these on for a while and see how they work.
And that's scary, like you said. If I did see some talk today on the CNBC and others saying, oh, again, a lot of the people still apologizing for these tariffs, so to speak, saying, well, this is just posturing. But it doesn't sound like you believe it. I don't believe it.
Yeah, if you're posturing and you're having to apologize for your president, then there's something wrong, that he's not listening to his own people, and that's an unchecked president, and that scares me a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I will point out we have seen a couple of earnings reports this morning that haven't got those stocks moving up. So it is good to see a little of that. IDEX Laboratories, which is heavily involved in the pet field. They had a really nice earnings report here. Had a good beat. As we know, you and I are definitely the two of the people that fall into this category that spend lots of money on our pets. They are like our children, so not surprising to see good earnings reports there. They did talk about, they had a beat on both top line revenue and on their EPS. EPS came in at about 262, right. Beat estimates of $2.40. And again, they're getting high customer retention and a robust veterinary software services and diagnostic imaging. So, we are seeing that. Steel Dynamics, I did mention some of the stocks that are also moving up on the line has been steel. I think people need to be nervous here. I asked you a question earlier before we went on, because while, U.S. steel companies are going to see more interest in the U.S., don't we send most of the steel usually overseas, and especially to Canada and Mexico?
We do. I'll tell you, though, there's several companies that handle steel in this country. But I will say, for me, I prefer U.S. steel. It's a much stronger steel. The Besser process is still the same process. We don't usually like to use Chinese steel when possible, unless we need to mix it with other things. So, yeah, we have an advantage because U.S. steel is stronger. But quite frankly, right now, price is king. And our dollar is very high right now. I mean, we talked about that. And if you're looking at other countries looking to buy our steel, I don't think that's the case.
Right. I would agree there. I did see two analysts raise their price target on Steel Dynamics. Goldman Sachs went from 145 to 158. And then earlier this morning, Morgan Stanley raised their price target from 131 to 145. So we have seen that. Another one that had profits this morning was Tyson's. And they had good earnings. I was surprised, and they didn't really get too much into the bird flu as an issue for them. They sort of said that it has worked its way through the supply chain, and it did that. They had a beat again. Their EPS came in at $1.14. They were expected about 90 cents, and their top line revenue was a beat also. So chicken looks like it's on its way back up. And that's Tyson's up about 5.7% this morning.
And I'll tell you something else that's going to affect that. We're already seeing egg prices going up with bird flu. We're already seeing all these cases. The other thing that I think will also attach to that is we're seeing another wave of cold coming through the country. You're seeing natural gas again popping again, 370 something here now. per 1,000 cubic feet. And look, every time it gets cold, that's hard on the chickens. It's colder on the chickens. They don't produce as much eggs. They don't produce as much. They can't move around, right? So all of a sudden, it gets worse and worse, and bird flu. And if the chickens have to come together, right, as opposed to range, then they get sick faster. It's just a spiraling. So those kind of things could cost chicken and the egg literally could go even higher than here.
Yeah, it definitely is an issue. Luckily chickens breed pretty quickly, so it doesn't cause as much issues. But when we talk about that, there'll be farms that, major, like a company like Tyson, that will have to destroy 10 million chickens in a situation when the avian flu hits.
Yeah.
So definitely a worry that's in that supply chain. I did see Lamb Weston was actually moving up in a little bit of a sympathy play there too this morning. They have earnings later this week, but we were seeing them move up a little bit here. Big losers, any of the crypto stocks, like we talked about, have been under pressure. So MicroStrategy down about another 7.5% here this morning. Also, all of the auto industry, like we talked about, no cars are made 100% pretty much in the US. They ship out, parts of it are done in Mexico, parts are done in Canada, and then shipped here maybe for final.
You can bet bottom dollar that the automakers made a phone call to Trump over the weekend, and he is talking to Canada, Justin Trudeau today, and Sheinbaum of Mexico today. So he says he has a phone call with both of them, and I guarantee you automakers are going to be on the forefront, the tip of his tongue, because it's one of our biggest industries.
And energy, right? He came to president under the pretense that he was going to be amazing for that sector. Took a lot of money from those PACs and super PACs, and they're going to be looking forward. Same with crypto, right? Took a lot of crypto money. A lot of people asking questions today.
And yet his Trump coin took a big beating. So
he was actually on Truth Social. They're pumping his coin this morning. I saw some stuff there. Chip factor way down. Obviously, tech stocks getting hit real hard here today. Nvidia down, back down around 120 here. GE Verona down about 5%. Straight across. Are you a buyer today, or do you want to see a little bit more about what does sort of come out here today?
Well, as you all know, I do pick up Bitcoin when it slips, right? And I buy a little bit more, but not much. I'm pretty long on Bitcoin. I've been long, and I'm averaged in something around like 15 or 16,000. So what do I care, right? So I'm not trying to average in more, but I definitely do like this slip here. It helps, but because I think in a lot of ways people are just leveraging as fast and hard as they can. But Bitcoin is still Bitcoin. It's going to go to 250,000 no matter what anybody thinks.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this was a buy the dip opportunity.
Okay.
There are a lot of new folks that got into crypto over the last few months. They are the ones that exited quickly. Those of us that have been around through these dips, took advantage of it. Like I said, I bought a little Solana down around 180. Bought a little Bitcoin down first to 97, then a little bit more at that 92.5 range. So got a little bit. Those are both for swing trades for me right now. And then we'll go from there. But they are holding up. It does make me, like I said, I looked at it more for what can we sort of expect to see. Usually Bitcoin has been moving at about a 3 times or 3x move on what we see on tech stocks in the QQQ. Yep. So the 9% drop that then retraced to about 3%. So QQQ here down about 1.68% today. Seems to be about right in that same level. So we'll see if we get a little bit of a bounce back here at 9:30 and start to see us build our way back. We do have a lot of big earnings on play this week.
Yep.
Any you're looking at there, Steve, especially?
Not really. I mean, it's tech week, right? In a lot of ways. So
yeah. Tomorrow we got Alphabet, AMD, you've got Amazon this week, PayPal, ARM Holdings, just a wide swath of them. Be interesting to say what Ford has to say I'll be watching Novo Nordisk on Wednesday too. They are about the only strong suit coming out of Europe lately. Let's see if they can get anything going there. Also, Eli Lilly this week. So a lot of the healthcare sector, especially the weight loss drugs, we'll see how they do.
President Trump says he just spoke with Canada's Trudeau, and he will speak with Trudeau again at 3:00 today. Wow.
Were you surprised to see the other one I saw was the CEO of Spotify went right after Trudeau, huh? Said that, again, this is their fault, as opposed to where you saw most of the others that.
Well, he says that Canada doesn't even allow U.S. banks to do business there. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how much that truth that is. We do have U.S. banks in Canada, so I'm not sure what that's all about. But I will say that, the dialogue is going on, so that might be good. But to say we're going to speak again means that they did not clear up whatever they needed to clear up this morning. So maybe he needs to speak to Sheinbaum of Mexico first. So I don't know.
Yeah. There definitely will be a lot of, movement in the back rooms of the Capitol Hill here today. So far, tick's been pretty negative most of the day. We see advanced decline at a very low level here, minus 3680. Look for almost probably another 2,000 to the downside once the market opens, as there are a lot of stocks that don't trade during that. VIX back up almost to 20 here again. We talked about it last week, you and I, again, to buy that when you don't need it, right? When you're not looking for that protection is when you needed to buy it. We talked about it on Thursday and Friday when it was down in that 15 level. That's when you buy VIX and then you sell it off when it gets back up into this 2022 area. So, that's played out. Oil and gas, like I said, they had been moving down over the last month here, bounced back up. Seems like the 200-day MA on WTI knocked us back down a little bit here at the 74 level. You think we break back through that, Steve, make a move back up towards 78?
Yes. I think there's a lot of pressure, though. I'm not really sure that it's not quite there yet, though.
Yeah, I did see that OPEC is going to meet early this week, too, to talk about, are they going to increase supply to try to lower prices. We'll see what comes out of that.
President Trump was asked once again, says we may have short-term pain, President Trump said when asked about the impact of tariffs on the consumer, adding, says that long-term, the U.S. has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country.
And as I mentioned, one of the things, too, is the takeaway is these tariffs aren't helping anywhere across the globe. You might have thought maybe we'd see a move up by the stocks, a move up by the Nikkei, a move up by the Shanghai Composite. One of those three, no. We see the Nikkei down the most at about 1.6, so very much in a similar range to where our QQQ is. We see the stocks down about 1.26%, erasing some of those gains we saw last week, and the Shanghai Composite pretty much even. They are still in their New Year's, most on vacation. It does trade during those times, but not with a lot of volume. So those are moving. We do, as you mentioned, see UNG up about 8% here as a cold wave is expected to hit the U.S. again. We do have Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Currency himself. Man, he nailed the loony there, huh?
Yeah.
I tweeted about that last night. It broke right through the area he talked about. It has pulled back into that zone. He said it is sort of a support zone here. Has pulled back a little bit. We'll see what he thinks later on today, where that's going to move. And we can see the same thing. The USD Mexican peso went all the way up to 21.29 here before retracing back down a little bit. But both of those broke through the key resistance he said to watch. So we will be talking with him more about that here at 10 o'clock. And again, Spider Select, which breaks down the 11 sectors, the S&P, we do see a slight positive on energy here. All others down, with most of them down more than 1 point. We see XLY down over 2 points. That's the consumer discretionary. So again, everything being weighed down by these tariffs today. Market looking like it's going to be a sea of red at open.
I mean, if we have this serious tariff war, a real tariff war happening, I think the winner here is going to be China. I mean, they could sit here and we can fight with Europe, we can fight with Mexico, we can fight with Canada, and the real winner's sitting back in is China. So I'm not really sure why he's going to war with all of our own allies.
Yeah, I can't. Sometimes I have the counter to your point there, but I don't on any of these. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's there's no winner in this. If it was for posturing, and that's the only the hope that I had was that by the time we had gotten to market open today, he would have already spoken to some of these folks and have some news on the way. Right, that was what I was sort of looking at as a hopeful thing on the weekend, but we can see that's not the case. This is going to drag out, it looks like, for a little while, and there are no winners. Like I said, you look at all the world markets, nobody's winning. We saw the huge sell-off across crypto. Who won when all of those perpetual futures were liquidated? Right. I mean, nobody.
And at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock, we're going to have car sales numbers. We're going to have S&P Global Manufacturing PMI numbers. So we're going to figure out just how much of a hit that he was expecting. And man, if we see a prior reading right now of all truck sales, which is the big one right now, is 13.84 million units. If we see a damper in this, wow, then there's going to be a serious problematic issue when it comes to car manufacturers. We could see General Motors and Ford really taking a big beating.
Right, and I do want to point out, if we see anything that's bad today, it's really bad because that is prior. We're looking at a rearview mirror with these numbers that are coming out. So if they're not positive already, think about what the talk is going to be on CNBC, Bloomberg, everywhere, because, that's going to sound alarms without a doubt. So I do think, that's the case. The question is going to be, what I'll be watching today, Steve, is going to be these companies that are up on decent earnings: IDXX, Stronghold, TSN, Tyson. Do they hold anything today, or do these just melt away? We saw that with some of the financials, right? We got it had buoyed the market a couple of days ago, or now a couple of weeks ago, excuse me. But a lot of those got sold off over the following days. So will we see that, or can earnings buoy us up a little bit and move us back into the positive area? So that's what I'll be watching for here as we play out here after the open. We're about 8 minutes away. Again, not much that I'm seeing positive. Gold, though, I do want to give you that. You did talk about it breaking its all-time high. It did. Didn't really run away, just got up to about 28.17, has cooled off from that area a little bit, trying to reapproach it here this morning. I know you've called for 3,000 on gold and 50 on silver. Yeah. You think we see any movement there? Gold, we did get a couple of questions over the weekend. I know you and I about why was gold not just blowing up, and a big part of that is that we import all our gold, right? We don't really have a huge amount here in the U.S. The
United States government has a very significant. We're the largest owner when it comes to countries of owning gold. So we're not. No one's even close to the United States, but they're not really buying gold. The United States isn't buying gold right now as a country. Other countries are buying their gold from us. And the price of gold is going down because the U.S. dollar is going up, and it costs more to buy our gold. So not only is gold at a high, but it's also costing more to buy it. So we lose both ways.
Yeah, third way too, because what I saw is physical gold, there isn't a lot, as we know, here in the U.S. for folks to go. That's why you need Peter Thomas and the boys at AU Secure, who have a good pipeline of that. But a lot of that comes from overseas, and they're going to be tariffed now. So that's what's another. So while the U.S. dollar being strong, we should be in a good spot to buy gold. No, we're not, because it's going to be hit by these tariffs.
And if you talk about it from the perspective of one of the biggest buyers of gold is India. And the U.S. dollar to the rupee is 87.04 right now, at an all-time high. The dollar is at an all-time high against the rupee. I mean, that tells you everything, right? I mean, who's going to buy our gold if our dollar just continues to go higher? and it's at an all-time high. So I don't know what to say.
Yep, I'm with you there. We are about 6 minutes from the open. I did see rates came down a little bit overnight. 10-year right back at around that 450 mark. Been our key support so far. Maybe we see a little relief because rates come down below that key level there of 4.5. Does that maybe give some breathing room to people? We'll see. Would help some of the smaller companies maybe give a little bit of breathing room to the rut here today. The Russell 2000 folks, more of that small cap, mid cap sized companies. 30 years sitting at about 4.73. So again, we are seeing those at the lows that we haven't seen since late December. So maybe that gives us a little bit of breathing room here, but I don't think it does.
Yeah, I'm not liking the sell-off at NVIDIA here, but gold now 28.13, 2014 now an ounce. Wow. I mean, we're going to hit 3,000. I thought it was 3,000 somewhere in the summertime, but we may hit it next month or two at this rate.
Right. Tesla down close to 4% here. NVIDIA down over 4.5%. Apple down 3%. You looking at any of the Mag 7 here today for maybe a little buy for a scalp?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
Banks are all down about 2.5 to 3% also. So even that category, which you thought maybe would be seeing some strength today, not seeing any strength there either. Restaurants too, all getting hit pretty hard here today. Down about 3% across most of them there too.
Yeah. Bitcoin 94.5. I mean, it's struggling here at 94,000. It's just unbelievably struggling.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it bounced back nicely from that 91 level. I'm okay. I will say, Jeremy Vreeland did a really nice sort of analysis of where we're at here. I did post it. I think you did also there. Jeremy from the watch list that we have here every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. He has looking for about a half retracement back up to that 96, 97 area there. So we'll see if we can get that move. I may be interested in some of the crypto stocks today. We'll see what Coinbase, how far that opens down. Some of these others might give me an entry here into some of those. Coinbase down about 7% here right now. I'd be more interested in it, though, and a little bit further of a drop down into this, towards this 250 area as opposed to up around 270 here. So we do see a little bit more blood in the streets here this morning. Could be interesting time to pick up some of these crypto-related stocks for a quick scalp. Ticket has gone slightly positive here as we are about 3 minutes from the open. We are looking to try to get open here.
$94.8. This is a little bit of a pop here. Let's get back over 94. Let's get back to 95,000.
95 is what I'm looking for. You're right. Exactly. We want to get above 95, holding that area. That would help us a little bit here.
Advanced decline already raised by 30.
Anna Paulina Luna calls for mandatory drug tests for members of the House and Senate. I did see a tweet last night that pointed out that I think it was like 30 some odd members of Congress had better returns on their stock portfolios than Warren Buffett last year.
Wow.
Maybe they have an unfair advantage that they should not have, huh?
Russia's Novak says we will increase oil production from April.
And that's what I was mentioning, that OPEC is, won't surprise me if they try to do that here. But Palantir is one of the first earnings reports that I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this week. I think it's Wednesday. They're the first of the major tech ones that I want to see what they have to say for sure. We are 1 minute from the open here. Tick is back down about 27. Advanced decline down about 38.40. VIX has cooled off slightly here this morning to 1960. And QQQ and the SPY both set to open down more than 1.5 percentage points here this morning.
Tesla getting slammed here this morning.
Yeah. I think people are very upset with Mr. Musk and everything he's been tweeting over the weekends.
Doge going into the Treasury Department is really disconcerting to me.
Yeah, I can't argue that either.
All right, we're open now a little bit.
Here we go. First moves to the downside about 500 on the tick here. First moves are downside on QQQ, downside on the SPY. Wow, RUT opened up down almost 2.5 percentage points here this morning. Bitcoin struggling to hold that 94.5 here, seeing a little bit more of a sell-off. Won't be a surprise to see that. Gold is holding up at 28.15. But again, even there, we're seeing a little bit of weakness. I want to see what DXY does here as we open up. We know we were at about 109.4. So a little cooling off there, nothing too much. Advanced decline now negative 52.46 here, so still seeing some weakness. Mag 7, we see NVIDIA down about 5.5%. We see Tesla down 4.5%. Apple down over 2%. Looking at the spiders, all of them opening up to the negative here. Technology XLK
like
down about.
I think I might pick some of this up. I mean, this selling, I think, seems to be done. I think some of the institutions are picking money up here. There's 95.3 there. I kind of like this this buying here.
Still sliding a little bit, but we are seeing some of the key ones, like we said, Mag 7, all of them seeing a little bit of a move to the upside outside of Tesla, although that's now moving back up. 388 here, had gotten down to 385, so trading to the higher side. Most of these are trading towards the high side of the day. NVIDIA made a move to 114.80, trying to continue to move up here. So we do see a little buying here. That's like I said, Bitcoin showed me that. Look at Bitcoin here, 95.7, Steve, 95.7, moving up nicely here.
Yeah, I like this buying here. That's what I'm saying. I think this is a good time to buy here. I'm not talking about whether to buy or sell, but I kind of like this.
Yeah. AMC, I do want to warn, we are seeing a little of a sell-off on some of those early morning movers. We talked about IDXX had been up as much as 9%, has seen a little bit of a sell-off here. Again, not surprising. To see some selling in these ones that were up. Again, STLD, Steel Dynamics, seeing a little bit of a pullback there. Tyson's Food seems to be holding up, though, pretty well. Still up about 2.41%, although its high was at about 58.61, back down around 57.60 here. Let's take a look at some of the bigger losers this morning, seeing the same thing. MSTR was down about 8% earlier this morning. It has taken a nice move up here. Had been as low as 309, now getting a nice run up here, 316, Steve. So we are seeing some buying in the market here to start off the day.
I like this. I think that the dip here is giving people buying opportunities, and I think the retailer buying. There's so much money on the sidelines that why shouldn't they, right? So I do like this here.
Thank you.
Now. Yeah, I mean that was explosive there.
Yeah, that's a nice move to the upside here. Like we said, if you look at the Mag 7 especially, nice little move up here by most of them. NVIDIA, though, seeing a little bit of a sell-off now. So we'll see if this is continued. Will the institutions, Amazon, get a nice little move up here? 235.81.
We're seeing WTI oil now slipping here, 73.30 $73.59 now a barrel. They're $73.54 now a barrel. So oil slipping. That's good for stocks. We need that. We'll continue to slip here a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mexico's finance minister Ramirez says Mexico's in a good position to navigate global challenges after U.S. tariffs on Mexican goods announced. So
we'll say one of the bigger takeaways on Bitcoin is MicroStrategy did not buy any Bitcoin from January 27th through February 2nd. So first week of the year, they did not add to their Bitcoin collection here. So I don't read too much into that. It just happens to be they bought billions of dollars worth over the last few weeks. So not too worried there.
we're seeing advanced decline line minus 5,400. So that's really adding a damper to the markets. We need to push that back up, get more of a positive feel to this market, or it's going to continue to hold down.
Seeing that HHS said it might seek more than $1 billion from Johnson & Johnson as reimbursement for federal health agencies' payments of medical costs for patients who allege the company's baby powder and other products caused them to develop cancer. Can't imagine that is doing too well for J&J. And
We're
we do
seeing a
see
slippage
that
now.
down
Yeah,
about
about Bitcoin.
on that news. Bitcoin holding nicely above 95,650 here. Advanced decline, though, still moving to the downside. Same thing, tick still negative about 300 here. RUT's down 2.31%. QQQ down. SPY is the one that seems to be making a little bit of a resurgence here. Only down 1.43%. And the Dow Jones down about 1% here this morning.
I think we push back 97,000 here pretty quickly.
I don't disagree there. Like we said, Jeremy Vreeland did call for that. I do think we'll see about a half measured move back to the upside there. Visa actually up about 0.35 here. We know that they had some strong earnings on Friday. So it does look like we got a little bit of nice buying here this morning on open from Visa. Well, there's a nice little W pattern play out there on the short-term chart, but moving back up nicely. Also seeing UNH, we know they had been under so much pressure, up about 0.74% here this morning. Right now, right at about the key resistance line here. Just broke above the 200 SMA there, so you could be looking at UNH for a little bit of a move to the upside. Again, things that were moving the most. So we do see IDXX now back up 9%. So it is trying to move back up. You can see trying to get back towards the highs that it saw earlier, around 465.
Tesla pushing to the highs today.
What was that?
Tesla's pushing to the highs today.
We do see Steel Dynamics pulling back now at negative. Same thing, we didn't talk about it, but Becton Dixon and Company, a medical company, had seen a move up on talk that they would separate part of their business off, but they have now moved to the negative side here. Becton Dixon, they were considering spinning off their life science division, had them up a few percentage points earlier this morning. We do see them now negative. Same thing with NUE, which is Nucor Corp Steel Company. They were up in the pre-market, definitely dropped down pretty big here to the lows of the day now at 126.20. They had been up around 131 there, so we are seeing them move back down to the downside. Same thing, Fang had been in the positive. Diamondback Energy, they are now moving to the downside. So we do see energy continuing to get hit here. APTV, one of the bigger losers here this morning, down about 8.6%. NVIDIA dropping down, now down another 5% here, down around 113, moving to the downside. Citigroup, one of the other big losers, down almost 5% here. So Still blood on the street. We can't seem to break out of it. Nvidia, Tesla trying to move up a little bit off those lows of the day, but still we're not seeing much move up. I had mentioned Lamb Wesson had been up on the day earlier in a sympathy play after the good earnings from Tyson's. We now see them down 2.5%.
Yeah, I don't, with Lamb Weston making potatoes and making those good old fries, I was just out this weekend. I had dinner at, and people were not ordering fries. They were ordering salads. So we've been talking about this for a while. 96.5 now on Bitcoin. I said 97,000 probably going to come. So here we go.
Steve, did you notice too, Robinhood is getting into the sports gambling world, although they're doing it not in the way that that the normal sport books do. They are doing it by offering contracts on the winner of the Super Bowl. So I was a little, I don't know. Does it capture anybody interest, do you think? To me,
No.
those gambling sites still have a moat that Robinhood and these other exchanges aren't going to break through.
I don't like Robinhood, as most people know, and I don't use Robinhood to trade. I'm a professional, so using them to also for gambling, no. Most people don't know I don't gamble that much. Rarely do I bet on a sporting event unless it's something to my dear heart, but it's kind of a waste of time for Robinhood to do that. I think.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's a weird one to me because I don't know why you would just bet that as opposed to using a gambling site. If I'm going to gamble, then I want to do it at least on a site that's going to have lots.
Or
of
they
options.
should partner with a gambling company, right?
Yeah, that's what. I agree. Couldn't agree more. That's what I sort of looked at. Yeah, I mean you can't argue. Seeing from our friend Walter Bloomberg, spot gold just hit a record high of $2,818.27 per ounce here. So move up there. Mexican Finance Minister Ramirez says recession in Mexico is not part of the outlook. They say they have enough resources to absorb financial shock. I don't know about that. We'll see. That's one thing that as much as we rely on Canada and Mexico, and I don't think people realize how much that matters in the world of oil, right, Steve? How much of our imported oil and gas we actually get from Canada and Mexico?
A lot. I mean, I think this drill baby drill is nonsense. For most people don't understand. Exxon, Chevron, Mobil, all those big companies in the United States, they do one thing. They drill a hole, they find oil, and they cap it. They put a big bow on it and put a number on it and go back to it when the price goes up. And we're not there. I mean, $73 a barrel is not, 73.70 is not an answer where we go use our own oil. We'd rather use other people's oil at a cheaper price and then go back and get it. Yeah. We're hearing reports now that Republicans are now asking Donald Trump for tariff exemptions for certain Canadian products. We're already seeing it now where they're not happy about that. So, wow.
Yeah, like we said, it was across the board from what I saw. There weren't too many people that were positive on these. The ones that were what I would say not positive, but were not talking negatively about the tariffs, were more talking about that. Watch them not really to go into effect and them just to be again that negotiating tool. But we're already there. It won't take long for gas prices to move. I mean, the one that's going to move first is food. Unfortunately, food. Especially that, and I do think, Steve, going back to your Lamb and Wesson, the reason I think they moved up is they are also in frozen vegetables. And I do think there's going to be a move to frozen vegetables, so bird's eye, some of those, because immediately you're going to see the prices move most on vegetables in the U.S. Yep. The first things, they're very perishable. They, and they're going to hit daily. So, that's what you're really going to see is when you go to your grocery store, that your avocados, your berries, all that stuff's going to go up. And on the other side is, again, oranges are going to become very cheap because we export almost all of our oranges to Canada and especially Canada for orange juice.
Yeah, I mean, right. I'm reading right now that Mexico imports approximately $5.3 billion worth of corn from the United States. 4.8 billion just comes from the United States alone, right? Wow. huge increases, up $142 million worth of corn, just corn into Mexico, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, and the other part is I've seen a lot of people that have a little bit of an issue where they just think we can start to plant this stuff in the US and it will work. The reason that most of these crops now come from Mexico is because of our cut down on allowing migrant workers to farm our farms in California, right? So what did they do? The big multinationals, they started growing the stuff just over the border in Mexico where they could take advantage of those cheaper labor. So now we don't have an answer to that when it comes to a lot of this produce.
Yeah, and I'm reading, why does Mexico import so much corn? It's for livestock feed.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's where we get our meat. And then, right, it's a two-way street. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm pointing out, is that it hits on every side. As I said, it's almost a three-way hit, which it's not only a lose-lose, it's lose-lose-lose.
Yeah, this is really bad. It's kind of embarrassing, actually, for the country.
Yeah, and we are by no way alarmists. So when you hear us talking like this, you know that it is definitely probably not good for our economy or for anybody. These tariffs, I don't know anything that it will help here in the U.S. If it was a negotiating ploy, which I did think it was going into this month, it needs to play out quickly before people just can't afford their groceries. And, like you said, we have thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds of corn rotting away in silos across the Midwest. Yeah. That because that's what happens, right? I don't know if people remember, but during COVID, the amount of food that was wasted because we had no one to do the processing. That's what you'll run into very quickly here, is there isn't a lot of usage for this corn. There isn't a lot of usage that we can do with this stuff. So we still do see here tick down now, again, pretty bad, about 384. We see QQQ about down 1.65%. We have seen the Dow slip back down about 1.23% here. SPY's back down over 1.5 percentage points. The RUT, the big loser so far today, down 2.41%. Again, those that don't know, that is the Russell Small Cap 2000. So some of the smaller companies, public companies here in the U.S. Bitcoin losing here, also down back around that 96 level. What's moving up? Gold all-time high here, 28.20 here, Steve. You think we make a explosive move up towards that 2,900?
What do I tell you, everybody? It's 3,000. We're going to 3,000.
Yeah, it looks quicker than that, so move there. Silver still stuck in this 31.30 area. It's the one that has trouble moving above that 32. Hasn't been able to do it since back here in mid-December, and it was short-lived. We'll see if it can move up. Do see oil moving down a little bit on that news we heard earlier that their OPEC's going to get together, and we could see them increase production here to sort of help out. VIX still sitting around that 1930 spot there, so it has come down a little bit this morning, but not much. It did get down as low as 1880, but back up above that 19 level there.
I think we should look at companies that are in the liquor business. I think this is something where you shine. Constellation Brands of being one of them. I mean, this should really hurt Constellation Brands.
Yeah, I would look at Brown-Forman for BFB. Yeah. They're the biggest exporter of bourbon to those countries.
So if you think about it from a perspective, if Trump does back off of these tariffs, and we're already getting slammed by his own people, this could be a nice little pickup down here, down 4% here. Now,
I will say I like Brown-Forman for that. Like you said, Constellation's one in that market. LVMH, their Bullet Bourbon, and a few others. Problem with LVMH is that they're such a huge company that liquor isn't the only thing.
Oh, wow. There. We're hearing that Ontario's government will also cancel the Starlink contract amid the trade war.
I did hear that this morning. Yeah, that's why Tesla's down. One of the reasons Tesla's getting hit so hard here this morning was on that news. And again, does that help the Canadian citizens?
Yes, because
they have no access to internet, and we're using Starlink.
Right, Canada. I mean, Canada's got a lot of areas in the place where there's no internet at all. Right, it's in the
Yeah.
wilderness, and you can use Starlink. So this is not good for Elon, and they need to back off some of these tariffs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree any further with you. And as you mentioned, so SDZ, interesting one maybe here for a pickup. It bounced back nicely, as you said, on the hourly chart here. You can see it's done a better job of bouncing back this morning than some of the others. But Brown-Forman would be another one to take a look at if you're looking in that industry. They are Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, Old Forester, a lot of those bourbon brands that you see. Jim Beam would be the other one. That's Beam.
Looking at Google right now, slipping back down to 202.68 now. There's some real roughage here. I mean, this could be some problems here.
We'll say Meta moving up here in the positive level, up almost 3/4 of a percentage point here. So Meta moving up nicely here this morning. Part of that, I think, is a analyst upgrade. Fubon Securities moved their price target to 810 from 670 and kept their buy rating in place. So they've seen that move up on Meta on that news here, getting a nice little run up. IDXX continuing to move to the upside now, up 11.16%. Although we're seeing the slip off. So we did see a sell off right across those steel companies, right? Tyson's now in negative almost, almost 0.3 of a percentage point. They had been up almost 2 points earlier this morning. One that is holding up, EQT, which is an integrated oil company. They are holding up pretty well, up 2% here this morning. MicroStrategy is bouncing back a little bit too here at that 316.50 now. They had been as low as 308.90 earlier in the day.
A little bit of slippage there in crypto here again. Bitcoin slipping a bit. Nat gas popping just a wee bit here. Silver 31.50 again.
We did see XLV move slightly to the upside, which is the healthcare sector. It is moving back down though now into the red also.
Come on, Google.
UNG up about 7.91% this morning, hitting 1747 here.
Back above 114 now, NVIDIA here. Let's get back up there, 115 there, and see that happening. And nope, it will not. NVIDIA getting slaughtered again here, slapped again. 96.1 now on Bitcoin. I think we get back to 97 pretty quickly.
We're seeing a little bit of healthcare. Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you. Molina Healthcare moving up a little bit this morning. ABBV, which is AbbVie, up a little bit this morning. So we are seeing what is moving up is been healthcare, pharmaceuticals a little bit. You can see they're up 2.17 here. Nice little moved up. They did have earnings reports here. Let me get that info for us. And every headline I'm seeing is just President Trump's tariffs are ripping through the global markets. Stock market today, tariffs, royal markets down, NASDAQ open lower, oil prices jump. So it has been one after another across here. I have seen our boy Peter Schiff has been taking a victory lap today as gold is moving up and Bitcoin is moving down. Bitcoin trying to get back towards that 96, but struggling there, back below the $96,000 mark here. Solana holding up around pretty nicely at that 196 for me. So I said I bought that on a break right at its 200-day MA. It has moved up nicely. Looking for a move towards that 240 personally. Here, across that.
Yeah, we're seeing oil continue to slip here, 73.10. If we lose the 73 handle here, it could slip back to 72.50 pretty quickly.
And the tick down still negative 355, advanced decline sitting negative at that 5,500 level. It hasn't really moved off of that here today. Bitcoin trying to get back to 96, but unable to hold so far. Netflix had gone positive slightly. It is now down 1/4 percentage point. Meta, the only thing holding up in the green out of the Mag 7 so far. Nvidia, Tesla, the big loser, 5.8% down here, now down to 380. I will see. We start to get to a point where Tesla gets interesting to me.
I mean, Google trying again, 203.54 here with earnings coming out soon.
Yeah, they're the first major.
20354 Heather Lane, Parker, Colorado. 80138 is a 3-bed, 3-bath, 2,076 square feet home.
Meta now almost up a full percentage point on the day, so we are seeing some positive movement here. Bitcoin pretty much at the key spot here, right around 95.5. It needs to hold here. 95.5 for me is sort of the key spot I'm watching today. We hold above that, means we are going to continue a rebound, in my opinion. Below that, we still have some fear of liquidations to the downside.
You're hearing Kramer talking about Canadian stocks, and especially with the railways. Agreed. You know, we have a lot of companies that are partnered with the United States and the Canadian railways, Canadian partnerships, and it's going to be a mess. So I don't really.
Yeah, our business. You know, that's one thing that NAFTA did, right? Which President Trump signed the latest version of NAFTA. Is it lowered those borders, so to speak, and it made us one large North American.
So a guy that's for free trade is now against free trade. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Seeing a pop there now in NVIDIA, 114.50 now. I had a feeling that was the bottom down there again.
Seeing overseas in the UK, Chancellor Reeves has asked several government departments to be prepared for real-term budget cuts, risking anger from members of her Labour Party. So there's still lots of turmoil overseas too. Do you see Jeremy Vreeland talking a little bit about how Google looking bullish, as you just said, headed into earnings? He's targeting 210 and 225 for upside potential there as he puts on his analyst hat. I will say one thing these tariffs did, it took all of the news away from DeepSeek, didn't it?
It did.
You don't hear anything about that anymore. IDXX holding up pretty nicely, so I'm pretty happy.
I think DeepSeek is done. I mean, we now know it's a ripoff of OpenAI. We know that, of course, why it didn't cost very much to build it. Why? Because they just ripped it off, right?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
We'll say MicroStrategy, the crypto stocks are starting to catch a little bit of a bid here this morning after being down, as much as 7-8%, down about 4.47. 319, its high of the day, 323.50. A break above that 323.50 could send it for a move back up into that 350 level here. So we are seeing a little bit of positivity on that.
About 2 minutes now at the top of the hour, we will see construction spending month over month coming in, expecting a reading there. Previous reading was 0%. They're expecting 0.2% here. So, yeah.
As we get the first half hour trading done, we are still negative on the advanced decline, about 55.31. So we have seen a little bit of positivity there. We do see things off the lows of the day, but not very far off the lows. The rut was down at 22.31. It has moved back up to 22.36. The triple Qs had been down as low as 512.49, now up at 513.48. And the SPY was down at 591.57, now up a little bit higher at 592.12. And lastly, Dow Jones did get down as low, just below 44,000 at 43,898. We are just about at that 44,000 level here. So we are holding on, but I've definitely not seen any strength out of most of these. As you've talked about the Mag 7, we do see a little bit of a bounce back from NVIDIA off of their lows of the day at about 113. In fact, they are trying to break towards highs of the day. Haven't been able to get above 115 yet. Meta, which had made a nice move up, had been as high as 697.50, has cooled off slightly here. Tesla, the one really getting hit hard, had been as low as 279.41, has recovered slightly from that mark. Like I said, Netflix had gone positive, had gone as high as 980, pulling back to about 973 from that level here. We do have Mr. Flanagan on deck here coming up. Big B, are you going to stick around for a little while to ask him what you think?
No, I've got a meeting, but well done, and hello, Dixie.
Absolutely. Well, we will bring in Mr. Flanagan here. How are you doing today, Stephen?
I'm doing great. It was a good weekend. I hope you and the viewers all had an enjoyable weekend, and it's turning out that Mondays are exciting days.
The weekend was exciting. It didn't take till today.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a gap in the markets from Friday 5 p.m. until you can trade on Sunday evening, or you have to wait for the open. And one Monday's DeepSeek, and now it's tariffs. But I guess what we could say is the disruptor is at work.
Yeah, for sure. I just had mentioned to Steve how it's amazing how tariffs have definitely replaced DeepSeek as the news story, right?
Yeah, and it's sorry, but I got to take a step back and give you my macro view
Absolutely.
here.
That's why we bring you in.
This is so silly on the part of Mexico and Canada, because Mexico's economy is on its nosedive,
Right.
and Canada's been cutting rates for so long, and it's barely stimulating any growth. So both of their economies cannot handle this, regardless of every single naysayer. I've been reading all weekend and watching news all morning, and everybody is up in arms about you can't do this. But let's face it, Mexico's running a $180 billion surplus under an agreement between our nations. Canada's running a $50 billion surplus. Okay, this whole tariff has nothing to do with trade. It has everything to do with tighten your borders, stop the fentanyl coming in, and stop the loose immigration. End of story. Situation solved. Tariffs gone. So, what do I offer the viewers then? The disruptor is at work. This is the first step. Look at step 2. U.S. aid department is going to be closed and absorbed by probably the State Department. Zelensky over the weekend says, I didn't see 58% of that money given to you. That means of 177 billion in aid, this guy saw less than 50% of it. What the heck is going on? Macro picture. These are incredibly positive effects to the U.S. Watch today's sell-off be highly short-lived. And I would offer the viewers my advice. Watch. You can't chase a move like this. What you can do is when Mexico and Canada both suddenly say, okay, no mas, and they give in here, that's the time to go short dollar Canada and long short dollar Mex, because the stochastics models that I love to follow are so incredibly overbought. The better reaction will be is when there's a resolution to the tariff situation, go the opposite way.
Right. I can't argue. I did point out and tweeted this weekend, you called the move here on the loonie, right? Went right through the level you mentioned to watch for into that vacuum above. We have sort of pulled back down into that 1.4, below 1.47 here. Do you think that we can stay below that, or is this just a short-lived sell-off little reaction and we'll continue to see this shoot up along with the peso?
So let's look at the dollar CAD first. We're at 146.85. We're above my breakout point, which we talked about. You had a double top in a long-term chart. In 2016, you made a high of 146.87. And in 2020, in March, you made a top of 146.67. And that led to a very strong pullback in the dollar CAD in a long-term chart. We're broken above it. I think that will now naturally be the support point. 146.50.80 is going to be support. I would be looking to buy. Obviously, the high seen overnight of 147.90 is an opportunity for those that are looking at this going, come on, this is going to be solved so quickly that this is a great level to take an opposite side play. And I would agree with that. So I would say you get below 146.50 and you could easily start to retrace quickly because it's a headline topic.
Right.
This is not decisive damage. This is over not trade. It's over just simply comply with 2 requests.
Right. I guess my question is, how long does it take for that to play out, though? We've seen so far both other foreign leaders, while maybe a foolish move, they're digging into their trenches so far.
It's I saw the responses, and you expect that. And when they sit down and suddenly start scratching their head and saying, we're losing our largest trade partner.
Yeah, for Mexico, I see even a bigger problem with the amount of food that they provide, because as I've pointed out, we saw it during COVID, right? What happens is the food supply, when you don't move it quickly, it perishes. It's a very perishable product. It goes bad. So I do think that's what might start to open up people's eyes quickly. We've already seen the talks about how much corn a day is now not going into Mexico, which will rot away in our silos here in the U.S. And you'll see the avocados and everything that comes out of Mexico, the same thing, very quickly rot.
And it's very possible that you'll see a pickup in inflation here. And that's the trade-off. But you want a disruptor to get things done. This is exactly what America voted for. And Canada and Mexico making their response by applying their own tariffs is basically sealing their economies and probably their political power as well. After all, we know Canada is going to have another.
I was going to say, Trudeau has nothing to lose. He can just dig in and destroy that economy even more. I mean, he's done it for the last 8 years,
right?
If not more.
But the entire parliament and everything will swing to the opposite side. And in Mexico, it could be a very short-lived presidency for the new female president. So neither one of them have anything to benefit here. The best part they can do is simply comply with the simplest of requests, and this all goes away. But my point is, in the bigger picture, the king dollar scenario remains firmly intact because the disruption that you're seeing is uncovering such a massive amount of taxpayer waste in the United States. And this reduces the deficit, which is the key to undermine the strength of the dollar. So from a macro picture, this is only going to add to a stronger king dollar position that we've been talking about. If we look at the dollar index, for example, roughly at 109.25, we broke that 108.60 level that we were talking about. And I look for a retest of the 110.18 highs that we've seen. a break there is targeting in the 115. I would hope that cooler heads prevail and the tariffs all simply vanish over negotiated agreements. They don't go into effect until Tuesday. And I think it allows people, cooler heads, to prevail. And I think that's what will happen. Now, with Europe, this is going to be even more significant because Europe is also running a very large trade surplus, has been always with the United States. Europe cannot afford, with zero growth, 0.2, 0.3% growth, zero growth. Europe cannot contend with a protracted disagreement with the United States, considering the Eurozone just announced their harmonized CPI for January was down 0.3%. Back to what ECB did with 0.25%. ECB should have gone a 0.5%. They need to get growth, and they're doing this with little tit-tat type of responses. There is inflation is declining in the world.
Right.
And I think that the Fed probably, in hindsight, maybe stayed on hold, knowing that we can expect that this tariff play was going to happen between Mexico and Canada and could lead to a slight uptick in the U.S. inflation. But these are all...
I can't argue with those facts.
Yep, these are all positives in the bigger picture. On the forefront, we have Bank of England on Thursday, presently at 4.75%. Growth is beginning to crater within the UK. Are they going to just do the little chip at 0.25%, or are they going to get bold and get out in front and do 0.5%? My take, they should do 0.5%, looking at the global environment right now.
Right. They got to do something over there for sure. In the U.S., any of the numbers you're really looking at this week? I know we have, U.S. trade deficit on Wednesday will be one I'm sure everybody will look. We know it, as I pointed out to Steve, if any of these numbers look bad now, watch out, because these are so far back looking in the rearview mirror that it had nothing to do with any of these tariff, situations. So are there any that you're looking at?
It's important that I give a little bit of a 40-plus year experience. When I started trading in the early 80s, 1979, we were running a trade deficit. We have been running a trade deficit always.
Yeah.
What is a trade deficit? It means that we're buying more from abroad than we're sending out. Trump likes to talk about this as subsidizing other economies. In a way, I guess one could simply use that analogy, but why can't it be more on a level playing field? And I think that that's the point in time the U.S. is looking at. Bring it into the king dollar scenario. What's going to happen here is that you're going to end up with, over a period of time, of a year or two, you're going to end up with U.S. investment in manufacturing base.
Right.
What is the topic of the day? AI, robotics. Think about the type of manufacturing that's going to be built into the United States in the next 1 to 2 years are going to be the most highly efficient operating platforms, and that brings inflation down, because as you begin to become more effective, the costs and everything come down. So it's not a short-term gain here. It's a medium-term to longer-term game plan. But this is all behind the king dollar scenario that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, the king dollar does not seem like it's going away anytime soon, without a doubt. As I talked about, the tariffs do provide almost a lose-lose-lose in the way that we talk about it's already so expensive. It's moved the dollar up higher, so now it's even more expensive for them to buy stuff from us. And then they're throwing tariffs on top of it. We've got tariffs on their stuff. So it's just, it isn't winning for anyone, but it's, I do think it is a short-term a short-term speed bump, not a long-term roadblock. Like you said, the infrastructure building happening in the U.S. when it comes to manufacturing is only a net positive for the U.S. on the long term, but it keeps that king dollar at the top, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And this is a very unique period in history. Having gone back to 1979, I don't think that the world has ever been at a point. If you look at United States as being a incredible consuming nation, if you bring that consumption within its domestic borders, I don't want to say it, but in many respects, the United States can say, okay, fine. If you don't like what we're doing, that's too bad. While there'll be some adjustment process within the United States, the global macro model that has been in place for the last 40 to 50 years is being cracked back to the disruptor.
Right.
It needs to be on a more level playing field. And what we're seeing is it play out. And geez, all you need to do is just listen to the headline, as I call them, the bobbleheads on all the programs, and talking, especially when the academics get involved, all talking about the net bad effects of all this, because they all base their theories on models that are antiquated. They don't pertain to today's marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, BigBeat's a big proponent of that. He said no one ever wins a trade war. So you seem to be on the part that maybe we can, for the first time, become a net winner in this situation. As you said, most of the talking heads out there have it as a loss across the board. To me, it's a hiccup. I bought Bitcoin, I bought Solana. I'm not scared. Crypto it didn't hurt crypto. The drop was because crypto is about a 3x to the QQQs right now when it comes to its sort of, component towards that, and it's play off of that. But yeah, it doesn't. I guess the other part though is, for me, I guess what's concerning, and I think for the American public, is we're getting a little nervous. Is, if you remember, 4 years ago, we had an administration come in under the precipice that they were going to put their hand across the aisle and work together, and they chose not to do that, and it lost all of the goodwill, so to speak, pretty quickly across the electorate. And what I worry about personally is that a little bit here is, we all knew he got a mandate, the new administration, to change things and to really spin it up, but I think people wanted to see him go to war with Canada over trade. I mean, not over China over trade, not Canada and Mexico, maybe. And I do understand what you're saying. This really isn't a trade war. It's about closing down those borders to fentanyl and the drugs that have been plaguing the U.S. for years. But a side effect of that is that sort of trade war. And I think it's got people, especially traders, we can see it in the way we're not getting much of a bounce back. That traders are a little spooked by that, and maybe they're hoping that handshake can come across today, like you said, maybe Trudeau or one of the others step across, and we can get some positivity in the news today.
Well, I mean, you had Secretary Rubio down in Panama, and then Panama, by the time he landed back in the U.S., agreed with the United States. So, yeah, it's strong arm politics, no question about it. I view the tariff situation, I believe it's going to be a very short-term thing. I would not be surprised at all if you begin to see some cracking or thawing of the ice by the end of trading today.
That's going to be the key. That's what I'm saying, is if we do see that, then it's just that little speed bump, and it was a good opportunity to buy the dip. Any kind of a long one, though, you start to run into some bigger problems on, again, not on a long-term basis, but on that midterm monthly look at things, because you'll see some companies that will have some, they'll start to point out the forward guidance that won't look good based upon these worries of tariffs. You'll start to see numbers of, when it comes to gas and energy, what's happening there, steel, what's happening there. And especially, like I said, the food is the one that's going to be the first one to keep your eye on, because those things trade, they come over the border daily and they perish in a week or so. So there isn't, where people that were worried about this, or companies were able to maybe buy a little bit more of product X, Y, and Z. You can't really do that in the food industry.
Right. And again, This is not about goods and services. This is about fentanyl and immigration. So it kind of, you shake your head going, guys, what's up, Mexico? What's up, Canada? I mean, can't you agree on, if you can't agree on those simple things, what are you hiding? I mean, what's going on that you can't say, fine, we're going to help out, and we're going to, we don't want that stuff either.
Yeah, well, if it's what's been greasing their coffers, so to speak, would probably be a big part of that answer, right? That's going to be what we see.
I thought the most revealing thing over the weekend was what Zelensky said. That he only saw 42% of all the aid. And,
well, we've seen it already. They talked about how much, stopping it. We saw a rush. The wheels of government do not move quickly. I can tell you that from being involved in that federal sector there in DC for a while. And yes, usually that's why we warn that, if you don't see movement in a beginning of a new administration, nothing happens, because once you get through that first 6 months, you're already starting to worry about the next midterm elections, and it already starts to turn. So
right.
That's what we want to. You have to see it happen quick, and nothing gets out quickly. And part of that, in the defense of the government, part of that is that a lot of the ways that we hold on to money is, again, to keep it from leaving our coffers and collecting the interest rates and things that do come with having those actual dollars before they get sent out. So the same way that you don't see companies pay their tax bill till the day it's due, you don't see companies sometimes pay their credit cards till they're due, or us do that. It's a little bit the same way when it comes to government spending. A lot of those dollars are held as long as possible to try to gain whatever benefits that come from that.
Right. But if you take this argument to the American people, this is a slam dunk on the the Trump side, that $80 billion of your money, taxpayer money, is gone. Where did it go? It went into where? Did it pay off government officials? Did it go? What? I mean, I don't know, but $80 billion could build an awful lot of houses for your veterans here, for your homeless cities. It could really help a lot of people here in our country. When you bring that argument out right now with the facts, which are beginning to surface, wow, this is a powerful, powerful time in history that we are looking at. And I tend to push the negatives aside, that all the noise pollution is being thrown at us. And I try to look at the positives that are out there, the light at the end of the tunnel. And I see tremendous amount of positives here. I'm looking at foreign exchange, and I just am trying to show a supportive nature to the king dollar policy that I'm looking at here. And I think that these, in a macro view, are very positive for the U.S. Short term, some pain involved, but I think the American people are more willing to go through a shorter term pain to be able to put this beside and behind them.
I hope that's the philosophy they have. I don't have as much faith there. I think that our, unfortunately, the echo chamber that social media doesn't give much of a chance for any of this stuff to actually get any legs and move in a way before negative reinforcement comes out, and you just start the fighting and arguing, like you said. CNBC and all the talking heads out there all railing one way without actually bringing, common sense into it. So I'm glad that you're here to do that for us, and to, give people a more clear view of what's coming up, because it will be a lot of doom and gloom there across our airwaves over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Right. So let's just talk about one issue back on to currencies here. Dollar yen, presently around the 154.40, 50 level. If you note, yen, as I've been saying, is my number 2 play outside of a long dollar. The yen is appreciated by about 0.5% against the dollar, while the dollar is making its move up. But let's look at that Mex yen we talked about. Mexico broke that 2088 zone that we talked. The next level in Mex is the October 21 high of 22.15. And then a March 2020 high of 25.76. The MEX yen, if we look at that in particular, which is where I've talked about, so much money is long MEX, short yen on an interest rate, 10% versus a 0.5% play. That's down 1.5% today. Look at other high interest rate currencies. ZAR yen, South Africa, down 1.6%. Look at the euro versus the yen, down 1.5%. Kiwi yen, Aussie yen, 1.5%. Sterling yen, about 0.8. Yen is quickly emerging. I want to watch that one. Put it on your screens. If the dollar scenario begins to waver here, as it could because of the overbought nature of the dollar, watch dollar yen. I have a target of 151.70 to 152. Japan is in a rate hike cycle now, and the yen could be a very good play. Right now, I'm looking at the 154 zone as the support. That breaks. It's going to be a fast slide because the yen carry trades are all going to be forced into the market to buy back yen.
Right. Absolutely. I love it. Mr. Flanagan, thank you so much for joining us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and bringing this insights to us. I'm going to let you have the last line of the day. What do you have for everybody?
Money moves first. Keep the yen on your screen. I do believe it'll be a short-term tariff play here. And I would looking to take advantage of a resolution to the tariff and probably short the dollar MEX, short the dollar CAD because of the overextended nature they're at right now.
You heard it here first from Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Currency himself. As I've pointed out, and we've pointed out on Twitter, he's been all over these moves the last few weeks. So make sure you're listening and tuning in every Monday and Wednesday and Friday with us. We will be back at today, 12 o'clock, with Agnieszka Wood, talking with our trading mindset coach. She has a great segment for us today. And then at 1 o'clock, we have Scott Bauer and the folks from Prosper Trading Academy on live from the floor of the SIBO. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you again at 9 a.m.